Let's break this one down alongside Emery Hunt here in studio. Tyler Sullivan weighing in as well. Gentlemen, this was not a instructional tape. This was not a picture of perfection in any ways, but it's the result that the Bears need in more ways than one. We're going to get to some of the draft implications here in a moment, but first, what did you learn about these two football teams, either side of the ball, Emery? What stuck out to you, your main point coming out of Thursday night?
That both still have a lot of pride, Joe. When you think about two teams, bad records, bad football teams, bad game overall, but the fact that they went out there and fought hard. This was a competitive game from start to finish, and we saw a team in Carolina have a chance in the end. We saw a team in Chicago find a way to close out. Matt Eberflus is 1-9 in one-score games in the fourth quarter. Well, he's 2-9 now. He got the win, and that shows the mark of a team that's getting better. I thought the defense was better for Chicago, and we saw them finally close out a win against a very tough and game opponent.
Yeah, I think it's just work in progress for both of these clubs. I mean, we're talking a lot about the NFL draft as opposed to playoff implications or anything like that with this game, which goes to show you that these are rebuilding teams. They're trying to figure themselves out as these games go along. And specifically for Carolina, I think that there's a lot more questions. Sure, Chicago, you know, they don't have Justin Fields. They still have pieces on that defense. They just brought in Montez Sweat. So they're at least able to look towards the future with some positivity, especially now that you're driving Carolina further down into the draft board, or at least higher up on the draft board. But for Carolina, there's a lot of questions on this team. I know a lot of the conversation is going to be about Bryce Young, but there's really not much around him. The conversation for me is, what can the Carolina Panthers do between now and the end of the season to find out who they can build with going forward, and then find out who they can't build with and how do they replace them with better talent. That to me is going to be the biggest thing. They're with Bryce Young for here and for the next few years now, especially with not having a first-round pick next year. They need to figure out how to enhance him, how to put him in the best position possible to win football games that they couldn't do tonight.
I know we're very worried about the future of Bryce Young, or interested in it, maybe a better word for this instance, but there were moments where it looked like the guy you drafted 1-1. There were a lot more moments where it looked like a guy with little talent around him trying to figure things out. This is a sliding scale we're grading on, and maybe we're grading, unfortunately, on the C.J. Stroud scale right now, unfair to Bryce Young. But there were instances in this game where he did look a little bit lost. As you assess this 60 minutes of football, are we even moving in the right direction when it comes to Bryce Young? Based off what we saw in the latter part of the game, the last drive or two in the game, he's moving in the right direction. But based off what we saw in the first 3 quarters of the game, he looks like a guy that doesn't know how to adjust when the picture changes post-snap. He has an idea what's going to happen once he's at the line of scrimmage when he makes a call. But once the ball is snapping, it's time for that post-snap picture to change. That's when things start to get a little bit hazy for him. He's holding the ball a little bit longer. We talked the pregame show. His footwork is all out of whack. He's not using his athleticism. He did earlier in the game, very early, but then he got off of that and started to be a little bit more scattershot. But on the last drive, we saw him lock in. Yes, the ball was coming out short and quick, but it was efficient. He was moving the offense down the field, got them in position to tie the game, and it just didn't work out for him. So back into the game, yes. Front end, still a bit of a work in progress. You know, for too many of these first-round quarterbacks coming into adverse situations, Tyler, it is often a throwaway year one. I present to you Trevor Lawrence, or even maybe the guy standing on the sideline here in Justin Fields. What must the rest of this season look like for Young in order for the Panthers to feel good about the development and not just pitch the year?
Well, it's kind of like what Emery was just saying. Let's see Bryce Young a little bit more like what we saw in that 2-minute drill. We could see more of the confidence inside of the pocket, him not kind of jumping around inside the pocket with his feet, feeling like he needs to flush out as soon as that first read isn't there for him. That's when you're going to start to feel a little bit more confident going forward. But ultimately, I don't know if there's anything that they can do right now with this team that they have currently constructed to make you feel like something's going to switch overnight, because it probably would have happened by now. They've already made a change in terms of the offensive play calling, so it doesn't seem like there's that lever to pull for them at this point, and the trade deadline's come and gone as well, so it's not like there's talent that's going to be reinserted into this offense either. To me, it's, can you find young talent on this roster? Can Terrace Marshall be somebody that you really want to invest in? You know, because Adam Thielen is not going to be a piece that can grow with Bryce Young. It's someone that can help him in the here and now, but it's not somebody that you can say, okay, this is his Jamar Chase, this is his Stephon Diggs that they can grow with over the next few years. That's not it. So for me, it's more just about building the confidence of Bryce Young. And that's really it. I don't know if there's much that you can do in terms of seeing it on the field and seeing it on paper to say, okay, this is what's going to make you feel so much better going into the offseason. Overall, it's more about the talent that they need to put around him over the next few months in the spring.
213 yards of total offense. The only touchdown came in the third phase for Carolina and this Bryce Young-led offense in this instance. Let's get on the Chicago schedule for a moment here, Tyler Sullivan, because it's an odd situation in and of itself. In possession of both of these picks heading into next year's draft. Maybe they have a quarterback, maybe they don't. Offensive line is taking form, defense taking shape as well. I want to talk to you about that side of the ball specifically, Tyler, as we take a look at those top 10 picks with now 1 and 5 belonging to the Bears. The Bears' personal pick gets worse with the win, but the loss for the Panthers pushes them back to the top spot for the time being, with the Cardinals expecting their franchise quarterback back, but they might be looking for a guy. All that said, to ask Tyler, are there things to feel good about in the Bears, specifically on that defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk all about, did they give up too much for Montez Sweat at the deadline and all of that, but I do think that they were able to retain Jalen Johnson. You bring in a guy like Montez Sweat. Those are building blocks for a team that needs building blocks wherever they can find them. So ultimately, we saw in this game, they were able to apply some pressure really without blitzing in this game. I thought that was one of the things that was fairly interesting. They were able to get after Bryce Young without having to send more than 4. And so, to me, that's something that at least you can hang your hat on. I thought Montez Sweat had a great game in this one, really pressuring up the middle. And Jalen Johnson, I still think is going to be one of those premier corners that they can kind of have in this defense going forward. So, you could talk about what they want to do with those first few picks. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens when Justin Fields gets back in here. If he changes the narrative, then you could start talking about, hey, maybe we add a weapon on offense, maybe somewhere on the offensive line, but maybe we go best defensive player available with one of those top 5 picks as well.
You know what, Joe? We were watching this ball game in the green room, and we looked at it and was like, man, this team is actually playing really good defense. And the mark of a bad defense is when you give up a ton of big chunk plays overall, run game, pass game. But this team was not only not giving up the big play, but you saw consistency in terms of making the open field tackle. So they were getting Carolina on the ground, forcing these guys to punt the football consistently. And I thought the run game started to work when Deonta Foreman came back and was healthy. He was actually would help spearhead this offense. And to top it off, how about going to Tyson Bagent to throw the football to win the game and not try to run it on third down? Hey, man, go make us a play. Go win us a ball game. He did that with a throw. So you saw all 3 phases for Chicago, sans the punt return early in the game, but you saw all 3 phases come together for the Bears.
Drive one in a window, go win a football game in what might be his last opportunity as a starting quarterback this season. Justin Fields expected back in the near term. He's going to have to ball out, because if not, we got more questions coming. Tyler Sullivan, Emery Hunt, thank you as always. And don't forget, this weekend, one place to be, myself, Ryan Wilson. When they finish, we start. Highlights and reaction, 4 Eastern time. Plus, we'll get you right after the evening window as well. Tony Romo stopping by with his weekly thoughts on Game Day Scoreboard.